I will be passing it over to Hannah for our final week.
Hi, everyone. I feel so bittersweet, like excited and sad that this is our last one. So many of you I've seen consistently come, and I just want to say thank you for showing up and spending an hour with us for 7 weeks. That's quite a commitment. And even if this is your first time here, welcome. It's just, I'm really grateful and thankful that you have come and shared this space with us and shared your experiences. So today, our last one, the build up, I feel like, to social media. As a reminder, it is Meredith and I leading in the first about 15-ish minutes before I pass it over to our lived experience speaker. Each week, we've been doing a note on language. So for many of you, this will be a reminder. If you're new today, of course, welcome. So we will be utilizing the terms like fat, person of size, person in a larger body, interchangeably. I know I use it interchangeably in my just natural flow of presenting throughout the presentation. When we do, we are totally using these words as a descriptor rather than in a derogatory way. So very similarly to how you would describe folks with language like short or tall, old or young. We will not be utilizing the word fat in a derogatory way. We also will not be utilizing obese or obesity, as these are terms that are most commonly used we see in the medical community. These were created to unfairly and wrongfully pathologize folks that live in higher weight bodies that are actually not based in science and can be really extremely harmful and hurtful too. So if these terms are ever referenced today, I don't think as much with the research that I'm utilizing, but if it is, please know that that is only in relation to research studies that we've sourced and direct quotes from those sources, and not from a place that I or ERCP is describing folks that live in larger bodies. So we've talked about family and institutional and cultural socialization for the last 6 weeks and really explored where we learn, what we learn, and who we learn that from to socialize us to really the humans that we've become today. Last week, we really focused on media. Meredith took us through a great presentation. Then we had Jen. This week, we will explore social media as it's a very prevalent part of our cultural socialization. At this point, I'm sure we are all very familiar with or engaged with social media, but I really just want to make sure to define and differentiate from media specifically from last week. So, social media is going to be the interactions among people in which they create, share, and exchange information and ideas, specifically in virtual communities and networks. So, as you can see on this slide, this is going to include platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Those are just a few ways. There's so many places that social media and different platforms exist. I would like to also give a content warning for today. So the information and the imagery shared here today could be activating. So if you're also a person that has lives in a larger body, has experienced weight stigma bias or bullying in the social media space, we want to just make sure, as always, to please make sure to take care of yourself if anything is activating to you specifically as we go through it. So first, I'm going to speak to the anonymity of the internet and identity shielding. So you may have heard of the term like keyboard warriors. People can make an account under really any alias. When behind a screen, people really become more comfortable, confident with voicing these biases. In this case, where we're focusing today is related to weight and body shape and size. Because of this, we're really seeing more and more frequently fat shaming, criticism to folks that live in larger or fat bodies. And because of this, we see cyberbullying related to body shape and size. And it's just become so much more easier and accessible when we don't know the person who is behind that screen or that alias. Through those photo and video and social media posts, comments especially that we see on these posts, we really can find folks poking fun at people that are living in larger fat bodies. Just actually, when I was creating this presentation last week, I was scrolling through my TikTok and I saw a video of a man that was living in a larger body, also was a person of color, and he was just simply warming up for a workout, doing some jumping jacks, getting his body warmed up. In the video, there's two younger white women that lived in smaller bodies who were videoing him, which appeared to be without his knowledge, and pointing and laughing at him. And it's so, I get, oh, my stomach curls and I almost like tear up anytime I see these videos because we see them too frequently. And what happens so frequently is that in one breath, fat or larger people are told things like you need to quote unquote eat better, you need to quote unquote lose weight, you need to go to the gym, you need to work out harder, right? And then when they're doing those things, when they're showing up to those spaces that are not safe for them most of the time, they are shamed, they're bullied, or even become the butt of the joke without even knowing that. Like, for example, the video I just shared. So really what even research is finding is that lack of that face-to-face cues associated with social media use really hides the negative consequences of online aggression of cyberbullying. Therefore, without this critical feedback, the aggressive behavior may be more likely to occur. Um, and especially in 2024, we're seeing this more and more. I wouldn't say this is like lessening, even though we do have some great influencers and some platforms that are really like we're seeing food and body neutrality, there still is just a lot of this negativity that we're seeing through this identity shielding. So we know that social media use has really become an intrinsic part of adolescent life. While there can be a lot of positive aspects of social media use at really all ages, there can really be significant negative impacts that can be lasting throughout somebody's life. So bullying and cyberbullying is now considered to be a significant public health concern. Specifically, weight-based teasing and bullying can lead to things like mental and behavioral issues and an increased risk of suicide. Other impacts that we also see are things like social isolation, increased absent rates due to just children and adolescents not wanting to go to school from the fear of being bullied for their body shape or weight. We see academic performance has been shown to decrease. We've seen eating and body image really be impacted from the things that they're seeing online and maybe the cyberbullying they're experiencing. In some cases, could possibly even result into like developing disordered eating patterns or an actual eating disorder. We see just overall detracting from other opportunities like extracurricular activities or community events. A research study found that more than 2/3 of 9 to 11-year-old children who perceived themselves as having excess weight believe that they would have more friends if they could lose weight. This statistic really just brings me back full circle to all of the earlier talks that we've had throughout this series. And specifically one of the talks that Meredith did about belonging and that needing to belong. So belonging is just such a crucial part of our existence at all phases of life, and especially at those developmental stages of our lives. Belonging in our culture and on social media frequently seems to be related to shrinking our bodies. And we're seeing that at even younger ages now with having access to that social media platforms just more readily available. When we think about bullying or cyberbullying, we frequently immediately assume children and adolescents. I know that's my first thought usually, even right now as I'm doing this presentation, but it's really, really important to note that cyberbullying is also occurring in adulthood. I would say young, middle, old adulthood, throughout adulthood as well for folks, especially again for folks that are living in larger fat bodies because social media has such a high prevalence. So an example of this we have is Ella Halikas, who's a plus size model. She shared this video of, she woke up overnight and people had been commenting, specifically men, had been commenting really negatively on a video that she had posted. So I am going to quote some of these. They are there, this could be activating, just FYI, but some of these things could look like, she's as huge as her own mind, or do you have to pay extra because you're overweight? This was in reference to like a plane, or you should be paying for those 2 extra seats, or I mean, she is colossal. Just really, really awful comments that we're seeing so frequently for adults as well, and that's in that cyberspace too. So through all of this, we are getting all of these mixed messages about how you should or shouldn't eat, how you should look, what body shape or size you should be in. You should do intermittent fasting. That's what you should do. No, 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 not intermittent fasting. You should be doing paleo. Paleo is what you should be doing. Nope, actually, I take that back. How about ketogenic? That's what it is. Carbohydrates are so bad for you. So. And no, actually, you should be juicing all of your fruits and vegetables, and that should be like your main source of nutrients. And then it just becomes so confusing on how do I actually nourish myself for my own individual needs. So one of these ways that we're really getting a lot of mixed messages are through social media influencers. So that's where I'm going to put my focus now for the next few slides. So last week we talked about celebrities trying to sell new meal plans, diet products. This week, we're now going to look at lay people doing very similar things. So as a reminder, a few weeks ago, we went through the differences of a registered dietitian's experience and background compared to a nutritionist. So if you can tap back, if you were with me a few weeks ago, if you can tap back to the differences of that and just knowing like how vastly different these things are. Many times on social media, we're seeing quote unquote nutritionists or other folks giving very like specific nutritional advice. This can be really problematic. Why? It doesn't consider individual needs. It doesn't concern medical conditions, food allergies or intolerances, religious practices. I could probably give you a list of 20 more things, but those are just a few of the things. So it's not thinking about, right, the individual themselves and their actual needs. I will say many influencers, not all, we do have some really neutral and positive influencers out there that are doing a lot of great work, but many influencers tend to talk about foods from more of that binary lens. So those buckets that we put things in, so good and healthy versus bad and unhealthy. They really assign hierarchies to foods and tie morality to food choices. So for examples of how we may see this is foods such as like lean proteins. So that would be things like grilled chicken breast, fish, turkey, fruits, non-starchy vegetables. We'll see these foods be uplifted on the hierarchy. And then foods like breads, pastas, starchy vegetables, etc., will be lower and more demonized. So we're seeing that very frequently. Another thing we're seeing from these influencers is if you just eat like me, you can look like me. So here's a healthy recipe I made. Try it. You shouldn't be eating X, Y, or Z. You actually should be eating this instead. That's what I did, right? Look like me. Here's a food product or a supplement that you need to take. I mentioned this a little bit later. A lot of the things I keep seeing for ads is super greens. Super greens are everywhere. They're little green powder that you put in a drink. I don't know what makes them super. I don't know if they have superpowers, but these are these things that we're seeing so consistently. And it's like, what is it even is this product? At times they're actually selling products on their social media platform for a profit, and it's not actually completely clear that they are. I see this a lot on more of like the videos. I don't know if y'all are experiencing that. I'm calling out TikTok a little bit, but on TikTok, I will be watching a video of somebody, they're talking about like a recipe, and then I realize at the end, oh, was that an ad? And it's just really unclear. So remembering that there's a financial gain piece here, right, to these things that they're promoting to us. And then what happens when somebody follows that diet or they follow that meal plan or they make that quote unquote healthy recipe or they incorporate that food or supplement product and they don't get the same quote unquote results as that influencer. They don't end up looking like that influencer and it becomes, oh no, then that's a you thing. You just are not trying hard enough. You don't have enough willpower. You didn't do X, Y, and Z. This is what you need to do. So really putting it back on us as the consumer, like it's a you thing, right? So we see that very frequently. As a reminder, humans are not one shape, one size, one meal plan, one workout routine is going to fit all. I'm a dietitian. I could put us all on meal plans in this group. And I can tell you, if we fast forwarded 2 months later, all of us would still look and exist in different body shapes and sizes. We are all different. I think another takeaway from this slide too, kind of wrapping back to that RD and nutritionist is when somebody is claiming to be a nutritionist, learn more, or even registered dietitians that are on these apps, right? What is their actual philosophy related to food and bodies? Is it geared in weight loss, or is it geared more in neutrality? What experience do they have? What background? What type of content are they sharing with you? Are they trying to sell you a product or a meal plan, right? Is there something for profit here? Does it feel black and white, like that good versus bad mentality related to food? If you see a lot of those hierarchies, or you feel like, ooh, there's a binary here, that's a good sign that we need to investigate a little bit more. So just getting curious around, right, these influencers that we follow, or they just pop up because of our algorithm. The duality of social media can be really helpful, but it also can be very harmful. So, a few more recent trends in the last year or so, I would say, have included things like what I eat in a day videos or girl dinner. If you don't know what girl dinner is, I have a little sound for you, and maybe it'll ring a bell. Like, oh, maybe I have heard that when I was scrolling through my feed.
This is my meal. I call this girl dinner. Girl dinner. Girl dinner. Girl dinner. Oh, girl dinner.
I mean, it's a little catchy. You're welcome. You'll all be singing that in your head for the rest of the day, but maybe it just rings a little bell of like trends and things that we're frequently seeing. Girl dinner has been trending for like probably the last like 6 months, I feel like. Also, what I eat in a day is always trending, it seems like, because it always is changing. It's like, oh, actually, this is what you should eat in a day, or no, this is what you should eat in a day. So I just went to YouTube and searched what I eat in a day, and this is the first things that popped up on my feed. So we're seeing things for weight loss, that we're seeing quote unquote healthy and realistic. I'm like, I'd really love to ask that person, what does realistic mean? I didn't watch the video for my own sanity, quite honestly. We're seeing people that live in smaller or thin bodies. Again, modeling, if you eat this, then you can look like me. So this is just what we're seeing, even just from a quick YouTube search. So why can this content be so harmful? It really creates comparison. These trends often, specifically like what I eat in a day or girl dinner, it glorifies restriction frequently. So what folks are calling quote unquote dinner many times is a small amount of food that wouldn't even be substantial for most people. So really glorifying that restriction piece. Also, what we're seeing is it feels like we're isolating different types of eating and then glorifying them in different ways. Also, who shares these videos and the body shape and sizes that they live in will impact the reactions they receive from the social media community. So we may see somebody that lives in a larger body really eating in a normalized way. I may see them eating a dinner and I'm like, oh, that looks yummy. That looks great. But when you go to the comment section, you can see them being shamed for their food choices. You will see that they're eating too much, or even possibly using like behavioral language like binge eating, or you're eating unhealthy or bad. Versus if I were go watch somebody that lived in a smaller body eating the same thing, the comment section is very different. We also are seeing things like glorifying that restriction, and then you get one cheat day, and this is what the cheat day looks like, and this is what the cheat meal looks like. So just a lot of like extremes from one to the other. What I eat in a day and what you eat in a day will, and quite honestly, should look different. Again, we are different humans. We have different nutritional needs. We have different access levels to food, right? Somebody that's at a lower socioeconomic status to a higher socioeconomic status, the access to the types of foods they have are going to be different. So it's going to look different. There's several reasons that impact this, but that's just a few examples. Other things we see all the time are before and after photos, that comparison, that judgment, really putting that superiority to weight loss and living in a smaller body. Last week was, if y'all, I'm sure a lot of y'all in the call are aware, this was Eating Disorder Awareness Week. And I can't tell you even from that how many posts I unfortunately saw that included before and after photos of, look at my recovered body. This was my sick body, and this is my recovered body. it's just so unfortunate because not everybody that has an eating disorder, right, was underweight and now is in a straight size body. People that have eating disorders exist in all body shapes and sizes, and that may or may not include like a sick weight restored body or not. Um, so just those before and after photos I know we're seeing quite frequently and all the time. Oh my gosh, hello again. I wasn't expecting that to keep going. Oh my gosh, that overwhelmed me a little. So loud. Next thing I want to talk about is parasocial relationships with social media. I actually, like a few months ago, met with Emma, and I don't know that I understand this. And then she described it to me, and I go, oh, I never thought about this. So let me describe what it is, and maybe you have experienced it. So what are they? So this is when a viewer develops a media personality. So they could think or believe that they're friends or have a closer relationship to an influencer. So this may feel like they know this person based on what they are viewing online. It really can create like a pseudo friendship. So you have this influencer that you follow, you really look up to them. Maybe they're a mentor, maybe you see them romantically, maybe you see them as a friendship, and you feel like you know them based on their content and it's relatable and all of those things. How can this like impact people? It can serve as escapism from current events in the world or people around us. It can increase social isolation, especially for folks that live in a fat body that may already have increased social isolation due to things like weight bias or stigma or that bullying they've experienced. If you think back to the increased absent rates we were talking about for children and adolescents with school, it can help a lot with loneliness, but it also prevents people from engaging in the real world. People think they know who they are, but you only really know that version of that person that they put out to the world. When we wrap this back into like the trends and the content I've been talking about, is that sometimes, again, we're not always disclosing that something is an ad. So whether this is weight loss products or diet programs, one of the things I called out was Super Greens. Bloom is all over my algorithm. Skims, Yitty, HelloFresh, Factor, all of these things we're seeing. This content that is intentionally chosen for me, and this person cares for me, right? They said I can do this. They believe in me. I'm going to integrate this product or this weight loss program or whatever that might be. When in reality, the goal is financial gain and not going to have everyone's best interest in mind. So this parasocial relationship is, again, they don't know you think that way about them. They don't know you, yet we are taking recommendations from them and feeling like we have these like pseudo friendships and relationships with them. So this is definitely a part of something a lot of folks are experiencing with social media. I'm going to now pass it over to Meredith to discuss the research related to social media and just the overall impacts of it.
Thank you, Hannah. So Hannah's done a great job talking about all of the different things that we see on social media. There are certainly positive and negative aspects to social media, but what we find in the research is that the negatives often do outweigh the positives. When we're looking at negative impacts of social media, specifically when it comes to weight stigma or folks in larger bodies, there's a couple of different categories that we break this down into. So I'll start with structural. Structural impacts are going to be things that are encoded into societal systems. So with regard to social media, this is structural weight bias that might lead to unintended algorithm or policy decisions that filter out or flag content from individuals in stigmatized bodies. What always comes to mind for me is clothing try-on videos, where if you've ever seen like a larger bodied influencer try on a crop top or a bathing suit, they're much more likely to get flagged and removed, the video removed, than someone in a smaller body simply for existing in their body. They're not showing any more skin. They're not, there's nothing different happening there aside from the size of their body. And I think especially for for femme or, female identifying people in larger bodies, there's this kind of overt sense of sexuality, even when you're not trying to convey sexuality. And that leads to this policing by the algorithm because of this structural weight stigma. Moving into interpersonal, which is going to be, of course, person-to-person interactions, or at this point, we should probably be saying screen-to-screen interactions since we're talking about social media. Things like this quarantine 15 hashtag or cyberbullying, like Hannah spoke so eloquently about. Essentially, the quarantine 15 hashtag was on platforms including Instagram and Twitter that featured stigmatizing posts related to people who had weight gain during the pandemic. There's emerging research coming out specifically on this hashtag showing that folks might be increasingly exposed to content that emphasizes thinness as normal and then perpetuates this idea that weight is self-controllable. So it kind of becomes hashtags like this kind of become an echo chamber for this belief system that is really not true, right? When we go to the research, we know that weight is not really self-controllable. We know there are so many things that go into go into health, but these spaces on the internet become an echo chamber for really harmful rhetoric. And truly, trends like that perpetuate these harmful narratives. We know that adopting negative stereotypes and blame towards folks in larger bodies then motivates enacted stigma. So teasing, social exclusion, discrimination, and also internalized weight stigma. So these things that, yes, our little echo chambers on the internet become so much more than that because we start to enact them in real life. We also know that attacks on individuals classified as overweight, and I'm hard air quotes here, were twice as frequent as comments in their defense on YouTube specifically. And as we know, more stigma means more risk for negative mental health impact. So these small spaces on the internet really start to have a large impact on those of us in larger bodies, both on the internet and in real life. We then move on to intrapersonal. Intrapersonal is the way that we make meaning of things for ourselves. So what happens for me inside my body and brain. The biggest impact of social media on intrapersonal weight stigma is learning misinformation and taking that into our brain. So we start to internalize and embody weight bias into our beliefs and perceptions about our abilities, our intrinsic worth. Social media plays a huge key role in identity construction. And so with each new generation being exposed earlier and more often to media, social media, screens, it's really important to acknowledge that folks might develop weight-related attitudes and beliefs based on their exposure to either stigmatizing or non-stigmatizing content online. We're starting to integrate that into our psyche, into our understanding of ourselves and the world. And so social media might spread information that focuses on behavioral or lifestyle determinants as like the number one thing controlling weight and health, like diet or physical activity, when we really know that there are so many things that impact weight and health, as we talked about several presentations back. So overall, there are some pretty gnarly things about social media that we have to be aware of. We have to be, as we've kind of talked about this whole series, informed consumers. We have to understand what's being given to us and how we integrate that and be very careful about the information that we take in and what we do with it. But there is, I will say, one positive to social media when it comes to folks in larger bodies and kind of finding connection. And that is going to be community and education. So the positive impact is that it serves to provide a space to build solidarity, reduce social isolation, increase awareness of weight bias and weight stigma. And that is really evident in the communities that kind of these little spaces that have formed on the internet. I think Jen mentioned one last week from a blog years ago, like Adventures in the Fatosphere or something like that. That was a really popular one. But I just kind of compiled some popular hashtags here: F your beauty standards, body positive, celebrate my size, honor my curves, plus is equal. These are all hashtags that are kind of reminiscent of these small areas of community and sometimes large areas of community on the internet that are positive spaces for people in larger bodies, and that can help us find connection and find like-minded people. So it's not all bad. All of that to say, we've talked before about kind of how leaning into community is important, and that's what I'd like to leave you with. And I'll pass it back over to Hannah.
Thanks so much, Meredith. I like the little pockets of like, and here's some of the good from this. It's not all negative and bad. Moving into what's next. So we talked about all of this, and it's like, okay, so how do I navigate social media in an anti-fat world? What do I do? So things to ask yourself, what am I taking away from my social media that feels helpful, that feels beneficial? What am I taking away that feels unhelpful? Checking in with yourself, right? How does this content make me actually feel? Unfollowing people and accounts that are not in line with your values. Diversify your social media. Start following more fat creators. Follow more people of color, people with different ability levels. So really diversify who you follow. Interact. So things like liking or sharing. I would encourage you with posts that align with your values, right? We're trying to, if we can, influence that algorithm a little bit to make it more of what you're hoping to view. Searching for content that interests you. So looking at hobbies, like, do you love to crochet? Looking up different activities that you're interested in, sports, music, and food and weight neutrality. Maybe you're looking up anti-diet stuff, can really impact some of that as well. And then finding community is so, so important. And we can find community through social media. There are those pockets of good. So really taking care of yourself as you're navigating social media, again, because it's just so, so prevalent in our world right now. And then I'm going to introduce our lived experience speaker. So we have Carly Compton, she, her. Carly is an eating disorder survivor turned eating disorder therapist. Her lived experience has led her to the work she does today, working with individuals all over the world to help give up dieting, recover from disordered eating or an eating disorder, and find genuine happiness and acceptance within themselves, no matter their size, race, gender, sexuality, or socioeconomic status. Carly is also a model and content creator based out of LA, as well as the host of Recover with Carly podcast and the creator of Eating Disorder Education and Awareness, a curriculum for adolescents. So I'm now going to pass it over to Carly. We are so excited to have you with us today. Thanks for spending time with us. So I'm going to stop sharing. All righty.
Okay. Hi, can everyone hear me okay? Amazing. Thank you, Hannah, for that. All of that incredible information. So helpful, so important. And thank you for that introduction. I'm so excited to be here and to share a little bit about my experience navigating social media and weight stigma, basically online. So as Hannah said, I am a content creator. I'm also an eating disorder survivor turned eating disorder therapist. A lot of my content online focuses around weight stigma, anti-diet, eating disorders, body image, social justice, you name it. I am probably talking about those important topics online. Mostly because I never had a space like that growing up. And that is really, truly one of the motivations for me behind the work that I do, is being someone I wish I would have had when I was younger. So a little backstory just quickly. Growing up, I was always the bigger of all of my friends. I was an athlete. Very active, but just existed in a larger body. And I found myself comparing myself to my friends a lot. And at this time, social media wasn't as prevalent. But there was still so much comparison happening for me. And I felt like I really didn't have a place to go to talk about this, to share this, to get feedback or support. And that made it feel very lonely and isolating. So as I got older, I started sort of navigating social media. I was still very heavily in my eating disorder and also just very heavy into diet culture. And when I started my social media, it was very much like fitness focused. I was, posting my workouts, I was posting my meals, I was posting all the things that I now encourage people to stay away from when it comes to social media. I think that was just like it was like 2014, 2015. It was just like really diet heavy. And so I look back now and I'm like, I am so thankful for the growth that has happened with me, but also with social media in general. I think that, something that Hannah really honed in on is this idea of community, right? And finding your community and finding your space online, finding your people. This was life-changing for me. A big part of my eating disorder recovery was actually finding creators online who were also navigating or had navigated recovery themselves, and really just hearing their stories and finding resources through them that were life-changing for me in terms of sort of where I went and the people that I sort of found through that experience. But as a content creator who exists in a larger body, I experience a lot of the things that were shared in today's presentation. A lot of the cyberbullying, I experience a lot of censorship online. And it's something that is exhausting to experience, but at the same time, I think that it makes, and maybe this is just me, it makes me feel more motivated to show up every day, because it's kind of like a big middle finger to social media and to diet culture of like, you can try and quiet me, you can try to censor me, but I'm still going to be here, I'm still going to show up, I'm still going to do my thing. So that censorship piece is super, super difficult to navigate. And I think that being able to understand that censorship piece is happening, I think is really, really important, because I think it can be really disheartening to be like, well, my favorite creators, they're not posting anymore, or why am I not seeing them? Or, have they sort of given up on this, on this fight? And then you go to their page and you're like, oh, wait a second, they have been posting regularly. I just haven't been seeing any of it because social media is censoring it. And I think like the role that we have in that is just continuing to show up, continuing to support those followers, like Hannah was saying, liking, sharing, right? Really helping get those posts out there. So that one, more people see them, and two, social media can maybe get grasp this concept of like, okay, wait a second, these people are actually having a really positive impact. Maybe we should stop censoring their content and let their content go out there. I see this a lot on TikTok. I have been shadow banned at least 5 times on TikTok. I've had my account threatened at least 3 times on TikTok for solely just existing in a larger body. I did a really interesting sort of experiment where I duetted a video of someone in a smaller body, and I was wearing the exact same thing. I was doing the exact same thing. And the video that I duetted had over 2 million views, and my duet of that video got taken down within like 3 minutes of the video being up. And so that was sort of just like this big red light moment for me of like, this is solely about the size of my body. This isn't about the fact that I'm in a bikini because this other creator is also in a bikini. This isn't the music that I'm using. This isn't what I'm saying in the video. This is me standing here, not saying a word, in the same exact thing that this other creator is wearing. her video gets over 2 million views, my video gets deleted within 3 minutes. And so I think that it's those experiences that it's even more prevalent of this weight stigma, this fat phobia that we see and experience online, which again, circling back, makes that community piece so important, because for me, I found it to be really difficult to navigate, to handle, to sort of like digest at the beginning. I was like, there's obviously something wrong with me. Social media is rejecting me. Should I go back into these, like unhealthy behaviors and habits? And, you fall into like this really negative thought cycle of feeling like rejected. And I think a big part of that is navigating that rejection piece and saying, I'm not the problem. My body is not the problem. Social media, society, unrealistic expectations, diet culture, those are the problem. And so if there's anything that any of you take away from today, it's that your body is not the problem. You are not the problem. It is society, it is social media, it is fat phobia, it is diet culture that is the problem. So please do not change yourself, change your body to try to meet this expectation or this standard that society is trying to send to us, that's trying to get us to fall into, because I promise it is not worth it. I have been on both ends of this. I've been in the fitness field, in the fitness realm. I've, like had this obsession and really unhealthy relationship with food and exercise. And I've been here where I'm at now. And I can tell you that there is so much joy, there is so much happiness, there is so much freedom in this, in where I'm at now, than what I ever experienced before. And so no matter how many times social media wants to try to tell us, or even just society wants to tell us, we'll be happier if we're thinner, we'll be happier if we lose weight, we'll be happier if we do this diet. No matter how many influencers try to tell us, you'll be happier if you take these greens, you'll be happier if you do, eat what I eat in a day. Your happiness doesn't come from the size of your body or eating what your favorite influencer is eating. Your happiness comes from being truly, genuinely, authentically yourself, and being able to find a lifestyle, a routine, a day-to-day that works for you, that makes you feel good. And I promise that is so much more fulfilling than trying to meet these unrealistic standards. So I guess what I'll end with before we go into any questions is, as a creator who has experienced that censorship piece, all I can ask of all of you is to engage with your favorite creators, have those conversations, message them, like their posts, share their posts, really engage in those community spaces. One, it's helpful for us, but two, it means so much to us, specifically myself. It means so much to me when I get messages from you all, when you share certain things, when you comment on things. It really means the world to me, because I know that someone is taking something from that content. They're learning, they're growing, they're sharing it with someone. They found it to be super important. And that's honestly like all I can ask, is that something is being retained. There's some sort of new information being learned, and that each of you all feel seen and heard and celebrated whenever you are in my space. Or really, I can think of a lot of other creators who create the same sort of spaces as well, of just safety and feeling safe there, because I know how important that can be mentally and emotionally for someone to feel that sense of safety. So find those creators that you feel safe with, recognizing sort of those parasocial relationships. Is it becoming a little bit unhealthy? Right? Having sort of that awareness of what that looks like, and just navigating social media with that awareness. I think that was the best piece of advice I ever heard, was take everything with a grain of salt. Do a little extra research before you follow someone, right? Hannah talked a little bit about these influencer dietitians, and I don't know if any of you all are familiar with this theme on TikTok with like there's this crunchy mom on TikTok. She's not a dietitian. She's literally just a mom. And she goes into the store and she says, don't buy this, don't buy this. This is why you shouldn't eat this. This is why you shouldn't eat this. And one of my favorite organizations, Find Food Freedom. Sam is an anti-diet dietitian. She basically duets these videos and is like, here's why this is not correct. Basically is trying to debunk this like crunchy mom message that's being sent out. So it's like, we have already this pressure of being a mom and making sure we can like our kids can be fed, and now we're thrown on top of this like idea of like making sure that we're feeding our kids like super healthy foods, and then it becomes, you know how the cycle works, it becomes disordered, and then you're sending this really unhealthy message to your kids. So finding creators that are debunking those things, who are having conversations around, hey, I'm not trying to like make you feel bad for spreading this message, but here is sort of how this can be harmful. Those are really great people to follow, really great people to learn from. And yeah, just do your research. See, like, what are they talking about? What are they sharing? What are they liking? Right? That tells you so much about a person, about a creator in general. And there are so many buzzwords out there online right now. Anti-diet is a buzzword, body positivity, right? We have all these buzzwords that a lot of people can really throw into their marketing. So we want to be sure that we're being aware of, you know, what sort of lens that provider works from, to make sure we don't put ourselves in a position where we are causing more harm to ourselves. So that's something I always recommend with my followers, but also with my clients as a therapist, is like, hey, let's take a couple more steps into sort of seeing where this person comes from, like what their stance is, what their experience is, and sort of see if it feels like a good fit or not. So that's just a piece of advice I always like to share, because I know that can be really overwhelming when navigating the online space. Does anyone have any questions? I'd like to save as much time as possible for questions, because I think questions can be a lot more helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carly. We're so appreciative of you coming in and being our lived experience speaker for today. I did receive questions, so I'll be asking you all of the questions, and it will be open to you, Hannah, or Meredith. And so there's been lots of just comments in the chat, validation for all of you. And then also I did receive some questions. So one of the questions that I got was, what tips do you have in navigating social media and seeing or even potentially receiving unkind comments related to body?
I can touch on that just quickly. This is an everyday thing for me. I experience the most absurd negative comments, whether it's in a post or it's a DM. And I think the biggest thing that I found to be really helpful for me is knowing this person is a complete stranger. This person does not know me. This person has never met me. If they were to meet me in person, guarantee they would probably really love me. But this is a complete stranger. This is someone who I have never met. So why would I allow a complete stranger, someone I've never met, to have such a big impact on the way that I view myself? And into that is this idea of like internal like projection, right? This idea of individuals who take time out of their day to comment negative things on a stranger's video are oftentimes experiencing their own internal struggles that unfortunately they tend to project onto creators, because it's an easy outlet, it's an easy target. And so for me, I like to remind myself this comment actually has very little to do with me and has so much to do with something internally that this person is experiencing and navigating. Not excusing what they're saying, not excusing their behavior, but just allowing myself to let go of that pressure to take on that comment, to internalize that comment, and to use that comment to basically decrease the worth that I feel about myself. So that projection piece, I feel like, is something I always find myself. I'm like, they're projecting. This has nothing to do with me. This is solely to do with them. And maybe I posted something that made them feel uncomfortable, or something that they've been avoiding thinking about or having a conversation about. And so that is oftentimes when we see that projection come in, is I feel uncomfortable, so I'm going to sort of say something mean or rude to sort of deal with that uncomfortableness, or maybe try to pass that off to the creator. So that's something that I always like to remind myself of.
Yeah, I really wish that that old rule that we were told, or old guideline we were told when we were younger, if you don't have anything nice, don't say, don't say anything at all. I wish that that was just like the most applicable guideline for social media. Like, if you don't have anything nice, you don't need to say anything at all. Like, it's total, like, just keep it to yourself. Like, this
Yeah.
person just living their life, just let them be.
Yeah, and I think
um,
the hardest thing with social media is that people can hide behind a computer, right? You don't, like, some people, if you look at majority of the people who are leaving these comments, they probably don't have a profile picture. They probably don't have their name on their profile. It's probably a private profile. There's probably no posts, so you can't see anything about this person. And so they're hiding sort of behind their computer. It's like, I doubt you would never actually say that to my face if we were to see each other in person. So that's also that piece of social media. Is like, it's a lot easier for people to sort of hide behind their keyboard and say things that they probably would never have the courage to say in person.
yeah, absolutely. Another question that relates to what was touched on by actually within our presentation, and also by you, Carly, was how can we identify when there's misinformation that is being given to us in a video? Are there common signs to look out for?
I can I can jump in from like a food lens if that's helpful, from like I think I mentioned this, so I'm going to reiterate it again. I like to investigate the creator a little bit. Even if somebody claims that they're a registered dietitian and they are a registered dietitian, that does not mean that they are being inclusive. That does not mean that they like are going to not bucket foods into like a binary of like good versus bad. So I think first investigating like even if you were to like, I mean, then I worry about the algorithm too, but like if you were to look more at more of their content and investigate, I think that can be helpful. If you see that there's hierarchies to food, so if you see you should eat this, but you shouldn't eat this, or this is better, a lot of language around like, I'm trying to think of like what's really popular right now, like buzzword, like thinking of those buzzwords related to foods, like the super, the fresh, the better, best, like that type of language and those buzzwords related to food, I think probably to bodies and other things as well, but food specifically can be a call out as well. So really just understanding their philosophy. Also, are they promoting a product? Is this an ad? Is this for profit? I'm not saying all things for profit are bad and like you shouldn't like watch that content and it's not good, but a lot of the times, like, right, there is an incentive here for this person to be promoting this food product or this menu or this meal plan or et cetera, et cetera. So from like a food lens, those are just a few of the things that were coming up for me. But Carly and Meredith, definitely hop in if you want to add more.
I think that's great. I think that investigation piece is, yeah, really helpful. One thing that I also really like to do, and maybe this is not as accurate, like I find it to be pretty accurate for me, is I like to go through who that person is following. I think that tells me a lot about that person as well. What sort of accounts are they following? What kind of people are they following? Because usually if you're following someone, majority of the time you're following someone because you enjoy their content, or you are learning from them, or sometimes we follow people. I don't agree with hate following, quote unquote hate following, but it happens. So I feel like just sort of having this sort of glimpse into who they're following is also really helpful. Can tell you a lot about sort of that person.
my little 2 cents to add is that I would stay away from folks who present things as always or never. So kind of a riff on what Hannah was saying, but I find that when people are presenting what they're giving you as like capital T truth and the only thing that's right, that is a red flag to me. I find that folks who are more neutral and balanced speak in a more neutral and balanced way and say, this might not be for everyone. I can tell you that this is what the science says, and also that's not going to apply to every single person here, right? Like they are willing to be wrong, are willing to have a conversation instead of like, you should always do this and this applies to everyone and is the big capital T truth. That's my thought there.
Thank you all for your responses. I think that they're all really great tips. And so someone had said, I'm involved in a number of different employee groups, such as mental health related, identity related at my work, and would love to do all I can to help. How can I best support people who live in larger bodies at my workplace? I would love nothing more than for them to feel included and for their voices to be heard. And then they said any event ideas, but I think there's just like any ideas in general about how to make people who are in larger bodies or fat bodies feel more included within the workspace, especially since the workspace can be a very toxic place.
I'll start. I don't want to hop over anyone. I think when we think from an event lens, think of accessibility. So if you're holding an event somewhere, know what the seating looks like, know what the entrances look like. Is there stairs? Okay, if there's stairs, is there an accessible elevator, right? So when you're thinking of event spaces or activities, is it an inclusive space for people that live in a larger or fat body? And if it's not, pick a different space. So that's what my first thought is for if you're doing like work, like team bonding events, that type of thing.
One piece that I'll just share quickly, and I just bring this up because I've had experience with this, but a lot of times workplaces will do like weight loss challenges. So I think like being an advocate for why these challenges can be extremely harmful, how they can be causing harm to employees, just being sort of a voice, being an advocate, letting the individuals that you work with who exist in larger bodies know like, hey, I got you, I'm on your side, I'm on your team, right? Like I'm willing to sort of use my voice to, if they're feeling hesitant to say something, sort of being, if you feel comfortable sort of bringing that up to someone for them, or whatever that can look like. But I think just sort of being like an active sort of safe space for those coworkers, and just making sure they feel safe with you, they feel welcomed with you. That's a big one for me, is just trying to be that person for coworkers, where I'm like, hey, let's talk about it, or hey, let's go to the boss, let's have a conversation about this. And I think that can be really empowering to know that, okay, I have this person on my side. So I think that can be super helpful.
I recognize that we are at time, and I just want to ask one more question that is open to anyone. But someone had just said more ways to be an ally / opportunities for activism. I feel as though, this was kind of touched on, but I was just wondering if there's any final thoughts specifically regarding social media that is recommended. And I did put in the chat, we will be sending out a list as part of our follow-up of people to follow. Carly is included in that list. So that is one of the things that you are able to do, of kind of changing your algorithm and things like that. But I just wanted to put that question out there for just to wrap us up on this wonderful topic.
I'll just share really quickly, just sharing events, sharing spaces like this, encouraging, people to attend and educate and learn, so that they can be a better ally, they can be a better, advocate. But just, making sure that people understand, you are like, for me specifically, I love to share events and accounts and people that I know are going to have a really positive impact on people that I follow. So just sort of being able to uplift and amplify those people, those voices, in whatever capacity you can. No matter the following, right? Whether you have 20 followers, whether you have 20,000 followers, just one share of an event like is game changer. So just sharing and amplifying as much as possible, I think, is really helpful just to build up that space.
I agree. My personal form of activism that also just brings me a little bit of joy is to report comments and content that I find harmful. So when I come across it, if I have an ick moment, I spend the extra 2 seconds to send a report on it. And it may not do any good, but it makes me feel better. So I'll leave you with that.
And I will say it usually does do something. If not, if it doesn't remove it, it usually will hide the comment. So as long as the comment is like hidden and it's all the way down at the bottom, that is, as a creator, I find that to be incredibly helpful when my followers when they report things, or even when they just comment on my posts, whether they're responding to someone or they're leaving their own comment, like just knowing okay, we our people are here, and there's like one or two coming from somewhere random and they're sort of being a pain, but I know that I can report them, you all can report them, and that comment can either go all the way down at the bottom or be completely removed.
Well, thank you all so much. Thank you, Carly, for coming today and being our lived experience speaker. I think that this is such an amazing way to close out this phenomenal series of just talking about social media, because I think that it's the thing that impacts us the most right now, especially a lot of us day to day, and it's just become such a part of us. So I think that having these tips and tools and just knowing that we're not alone on social media, I think can be really helpful. So thank you, Carly, for being here today and sharing your story and talking about everything related to social media. Hannah and Meredith, thank you both so much for your past, 6-7 weeks of just being here, presenting, providing all of this for the Unlearning series. We are so appreciative of both of your insight and education, and that we are able to provide this information to everyone about how that, this is a real thing that you can be like, hey, like, here's all the research, and here's a therapist and a dietitian being able to tell you that these are things that are not accurate. And I thank you all, everyone, for being a part of this series. We are so grateful to have been able to put it on for all of you. We're so grateful that you can go back and watch it again. All of your interactions over the past 7 weeks have just been incredible, and we are just so grateful to have such a phenomenal community such as all of you. So thank you so much for all of this. I don't think that we'd be able to accurately express all of our gratitude for you, and we hope to be able to see you sometime again soon.